If you give a trans girl enough compliments in a short enough span of time, you can completely stunlock her. This is very exploitable and let cheese most encounters. Hey, wait a minute. No. You can't just. I've been questioning my gender lately, and I was wondering, how did you realize you were trans? Oh, a friend called me she, and I immediately burst into tears. Yeah, I did drugs and had a TG caption-inspired panic attack. Oh my god. Hey, degenerate, go to therapy. Sure thing, will do. Yeah, no, not only should you keep being yourself, but I think you should increase the thing. Sure thing, will do. Yeah, it's funny how that works, huh? And my hair's getting in my face. I'm just gonna man bun. My aunt, you look so beautiful. My trans mask asked. This is too much. I didn't want to have to use this technique, but this calls for my annoyed face. The transiest trans stuff to ever trans. The fact that I played as girl characters because they looked more interesting or had more customization options. Am I just faking it? 10 times out of 10, if you have to ask yourself, genuinely ask yourself if you're faking it, if that's something you have anxiety about, there's something there that you're not faking. If you were faking it, you wouldn't have anxiety about faking it, you know, because you would be intentionally faking it. If you think you're unintentionally faking it, that doesn't make any sense. Even in the most charitable assumption there's still something happening with you. There's still something you're processing, something you're feeling. And those feelings, that experience that you have is valid. The reasons that are driving you to ask that question and to worry and have anxiety about that, about faking, are valid and real. You might not know what transitioning means for you, or even if that's something you want. You might not know where you want to end up. You might not know how you identify. But if these are all things that you're kind of questioning and mulling over and processing and struggling with, that struggle and that processing and experience is real. The thing that drives you to ask, are you faking it, is real. And if you didn't have something there, you would never be driven to ask the question of if you're faking it at all. Hey, so let me be blunt. Yes, I know. Things are going to suck. We're going to be going through shit. But note what I said. You are not alone. Obviously, none of us wanted to be at this point. This is a very scary time in history to be living through and seeing everything play out. And it's very upsetting to see kind of all the progress that we've gotten to this point just completely 180 and back turn and have our very rights taken away in front of us. But just like this said, you are not alone through this. History has tried to erase trans people for hundreds of years. And you know what? Trans people still exist. We will always still exist. Even just from that, we know that all of this is effectively futile because we're not going to go anywhere. We will continue still existing. There are many ways to fight back against all of this. That can include going out and protesting, supporting charities, doing whatever actionable thing you can. It can also mean, though, just helping each other, supporting each other, helping each other get through all this. Like what's happening here is to try to erase us, erase our history, to make us invisible, divided, and isolated so that we can't, band together and be strong together. And the way to fight against that is to not let that happen. Stay strong, stay safe, protect yourself, take care of each other, and continue living your life, Hi, by the way. You might notice something a little different about me. Yeah, it is a new dress. My old dress is getting a little ratty. It's kind of old, so I had to put it on a new dress, and yeah, this one's nicer. Yeah, I have a new model. I've been working really hard on this. I mentioned at the end of last video, but yeah, there's a lot I've put into this model that I'd never tried before, I never done before, and to try to make it, feel very natural and organic and just me, I hope you like how it looks. But I don't like to ramble too much at the beginning of the video, so names? This deer, I can't remember their name at all. Oh, hey Sadie, I'm trans now. I go by Peanut, not now. Oh, nice. Yes. Names really are so hard to remember. Why is it so hard for people to let go of old names? Hey, I could really use your help. So my friend's son is transitioning into a woman. Yeah, it's been kind of hard for her. She hasn't taken it well because he's the only male child she has. Okay. Yeah, he's been taking hormones and it makes her uncomfortable. Do you have some resources to help her through her son's transition? Yeah, I can send you some stuff. Oh, I knew I could count on you. I can understand that there is an adjustment that close family members sometimes need to make and to have and go through. And yeah, there can be complex feelings around people transitioning and having to reevaluate stuff. And like maybe people need to come to terms and kind of battle their own insecurities, their own bigotry that they might not even realize they had that ingrained in them, because like, yeah, that shit's kind of ingrained in our society. And I guess as long as the daughter is not having to put up with this processing herself, because yeah, trans people should not be the ones to have to deal with and do this emotional processing for others. So yeah, I guess good to ask other people for help about this. But, girl who wiggles her whole body whenever she's happy because she was tragically born without a tail to wag. I do this because it is, helps with VTubing. Like, right? Like it's just a good way. Like it's just a good way to convey being happy. Just like, don't look at me like that. Oh, my daughter turned out fine. Ma'am, your son obeys on whistle commands. Whoa, I actually look super pretty in this outfit. See, I knew you could put together something cute. Oh, I love the colors. It's very Shrek core. What? It's very Shrek core. Because it's a green? Green's a nice color. I think that's a nice cottagey outfit. I don't care what anybody says. Broad shoulders and tallness. Men who actually want it? Trans girls. So true, right? Like statistically, this can't be the case, right? But it feels like it is. The moment you accept yourself and then a new dysphoria you didn't realize he had says hi. Oh God. Sometimes with me, it's even just like finding a piece of clothing that I didn't know that I really wanted or that I was envious about, and then going to put it on and just being like, no, this like specific part of my body, it just isn't fitting properly. Oh, everything's ruined. I've had a lot of sources of dysphoria like come and go over time. Like I used to be really dysphoric about my knees. So I used to think my elbows and knees were like too sharp, too pointy. I don't really know where that came from. Maybe like the people that were near me at the time, this is probably like in public school or maybe high school. Like maybe the other girls around me just didn't have this pointy elbows, and so in my brain I associated that with like, oh, this is something wrong with me, right? Also, like it's possible that HRT actually changed that a little bit for me. I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me anymore. It doesn't mean anything. It's just, yeah, it's just yeah. Gender euphoria is just as good a reason to transition as gender dysphoria is. This is true. This is very real. I very, very much believe this. Gender dysphoria can be a telling thing, but it is also something that's hard to internalize and to put into perspective yourself, especially where you're in the thick of dysphoria, right? When you're at the bottom of feeling like shit and that is all you've ever known, if your whole experience of dysphoria, that's just your normal. That's just what you're used to. So after a while, after many years of that, it's not going to feel like anything. And it's going to be really hard to recognize a lot of times that what you're feeling even is dysphoria. And it might not be until after you've experienced gender euphoria that then in retrospect, you can look at the dysphoria you're experiencing and realize like, hey, wait, I don't need to feel like that all the time. That's like not necessarily normal to just feel like that all the time. I could be feeling good all the time. What? That was kind of my experience with this. And yeah, no, gender euphoria and getting to feel that is really what made it clear to me that, yeah, I was trans. I struggled with gender dysphoria for many, many years, but I also, again, like was able to write it off my head as like, well, that's just, I mean, how do I actually know it's dysphoria? It could be other things. It could just be the normal. Yeah. And let me be even more clear about something. You can be trans without dysphoria. If that needs to be said, you can be trans without dysphoria. You don't need to be experiencing dysphoria to be trans. You don't need to be experiencing dysphoria to look for gender affirming treatment, HRT, to look for ways to affirm your body and your gender expression through your clothing, through the way you socialize, whatever. Gender dysphoria can be a sign, but it is not a requirement. A lot of scientific literature about trans people and looking at trans people focus on gender dysphoria as a measurement just because that is the main way that people measured something. Researchers devised a way to measure the amount of dysphoria somebody is experiencing so that they would have like a direct thing that they could look at and try to manipulate. Because, rather than listening to somebody's experience, while that is very, very important, a lot of times when you're doing some sort of like analysis, you need to like codify the anecdotal stuff in some way. So dysphoria was the main way and is the main way that a lot of research looks at trans people, just because that is a thing you can go through and look at. And it becomes a very easy, reduce dysphoria, positive effect. That is the goal. That doesn't mean that gender euphoria doesn't exist, and it doesn't mean that gender euphoria isn't important. It just means that it's not used as much. And actually, there just wasn't a tool or wasn't a way to measure that before. There wasn't a questionnaire that looked at gender euphoria. So that just wasn't being observed. And unfortunately, well, I don't think this was intentional. That does bias and paint the way that scientists and people all over look at and think about trans people. That is the reason why gender dysphoria is the main thing that's talked about, and why this even needs to be said. Because just gender dysphoria measurements is the main measurement tool. So that is the only way you look at things. But this is kind of a problem if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, Our observations can only be as good as the tools that we are using to make the observations. And while it can be informative, it also isn't exhaustive and is missing a lot of things. This image I commissioned 3.5 years before my egg cracked. How could I not see the sun? I'm sorry, you commissioned an image of yourself looking in the mirror, seeing the alternate gendered version of yourself. You know what? I get it. I was a really dense egg too. I willfully ignored a lot of signs, a lot of feelings and experiences I was having. I just willfully ignored the fact that I actually did explicitly think at one point in my life that I was trans. And yeah, sometimes it just takes us a while to get there. But I'm glad you got there. Me staring at my mom after she equates hating every single part of my body, being trans, with her wishing she was 4 centimeters taller. Yeah, because those are the same thing. Yeah, clearly. Oh yeah, you think you're struggling with your dysphoria and all the depression it's causing you and all that? Well, I wish I was a little bit taller and we can't get all what we want. Off. Also, if this person said this as a way to dismiss doing any sort of transitioning as oh, well, you can't always get what you wish for, so stop complaining kind of thing. You can wear heels. If you wish you were 4 centimeters taller, there's a thing you can do for that easily. It's not that big of a deal. And if a trans person is struggling, there's also a thing for that they can do to help with that. And they should be able to do it. I've been on hormones for a few months. Are they meant to be this big? Yeah, like we've said, it can happen. Didn't happen to us to me. It would have been nice if it did. But yeah, happy for you, girl. This closet is getting kind of cramped. Let's see what it's like out there. Sometimes we'll be forced back into the closet, but what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And with time and perseverance, they lose power over us. And we will find that we are not alone. Yeah, I think this is really important to keep in mind, especially now. I know things feel really hopeless and we've lost a battle and that there's nowhere we can go from here, but we survive through perseverance. The world is shitty and hateful, and we have to do what we can to survive and protect each other, but we can make it through all this. And we can survive, we can persevere, and that is how we win. By just continuing to exist, continuing to live our lives, finding the community and the people around us to help protect each other and make ourselves stronger. And we just keep being here. We don't go anywhere. For whoever needs to hear this, starting HRT doesn't have to be a huge momentous all or nothing decision. You can just try it like you would an antidepressant you've been informed of the risks of. There won't be any immediate irreversible changes overnight. You can always stop, change your dosage, change your delivery system, decide it's not the right time. You can even microdose if you want to. You don't have to tell anyone. You don't have to announce it if you don't want. Stop waiting for the perfect time in your life because it won't come. Stop waiting to reach a mythical level of certainty that never comes to anyone for anything. You've been thinking about it long enough. If you have the opportunity, just give it a shot. You're worth the courage it takes to make a change in your life. Yes, 100 times this. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. You can try it, you can start it. If you don't like it, if you feel bad about it, if something doesn't feel right, you can change it, you can stop. And this part right here is very, very important to listen to. There will never be a perfect time to start. There will be different times to start, but never a perfect one. Not one to wait for. And you're not going to be able to make yourself feel certain enough about it before starting, because there will always be a huge uncertainty of just how it feels once you've actually started. And that is the most important part of that feeling that you need to learn to evaluate if it's right for you or not. And you can't really know that without actually experiencing it and doing it. I ended up waiting way too long, way longer than I needed to, thinking that I needed to figure everything out beforehand, thinking that I needed to be absolutely certain that this is what I wanted and this is what I needed, and that I really was trans. 13 years is how long I waited. And you know what? At the end of it, I wasn't certain. I still wasn't. Not until I actually started taking steps for transitioning. I wasn't certain about coming out until I came out. At the end of the day, there was just a leap. And the only person who was really holding me back from taking that step was myself. Trans mask. Trans mask. Trans mask with a trans mask. Trans maskless trans mask with a trans mask. Trans mask with a trans mask. Well, actually, that now in that case, shouldn't that one have been trans masked with a trans mask? Trans mask, trans masks. Trans mask offering a trans mask. Trans mask offering a trans mask or a trans maskless trans mask. Trans maskless trans mask putting on the trans mask given to him by the trans mask. Trans maskless trans mask. God. Trans maskless trans mask successfully putting on the trans mask given to him by the trans mask, now making him a trans mask, as well as now thanking the trans mask for the trans mask. Thanks, man. Only took like 10 tries. Man, I'm really into all the other effects of tea, but head hair loss? I mean, me with a receding hairline? I mean, I look like...
Hi, how are you?
I need testosterone. So there's something I want to talk about. There are many of you who think you're faking being trans, but you aren't. Let me explain. You get upset, or at least feel wrong when you think that, right? Yeah, you're not faking it. You are trans. People who fake anything, big or small, actively know they're faking it. They don't care. It doesn't make them feel any sort of way. But you get upset. You care. That is how I know you're faking nothing. Whatever gender you are or lack thereof, you are yourself. You are faking nothing, and you never will be. Yep, to all of that. Like, if you were faking it, you would know you were faking it, and you wouldn't feel bad about faking it because that is your intention. I've said this before, right? If you're worried about this kind of thing, anxious that you're faking it, and feel bad that you might be faking it, what you're probably actually dealing with or struggling with is just not being sure of, like, who you are yet. That you're not at the finish line of understanding yourself and your identity. And you might be more worried that you're wrong in some way. And that if you say you're trans, you might find later that you're not actually trans and that there was something else going on that you didn't understand before. And there could be something more with what you're processing or going through or experiencing. But the fact that you've come to this idea and that you're struggling with this idea and it's causing this much grief and anxiety, enough that the idea of you faking it causes you distress, that means something. That means there's something there. You might not fully understand what it is. Not everybody knows what their gender identity is when they start questioning themselves and start trying to process that. That is okay. That is all part of the process. You don't need to have it all figured out. Hello. How's it going? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're taking care of yourself the best you can. And yeah, hi. I just wanted to give a little shout out and thank you for people who've been helping us or supporting us financially. Here are our patrons. And also here are Twitch tier 2 and tier 3 subs. And people who are members on YouTube. We've been shown a lot of support and love on Twitch lately. And I am very, very grateful. We actually got Twitch partner just like a month or two ago. So that is really cool. And we don't make videos or stream or anything asking for financial support through them. But having support definitely makes it a lot easier to do and enables us to do it, So genuinely, thank you. Thank you so much. It's just nice to know that we're making some sort of impact on other people, that we can at least help a little bit. If you're wondering where this model came from, by the way, I made it. It's kind of a kit bash. I put it together from other parts, or at least the body is from a VR chat model and the face is from a different VR chat model that I liked it, that I edited a lot. But like a lot of this is my own custom work. And honestly, I'm doing a lot of things with this model that I haven't really seen done before or elsewhere. Like, this is very experimental. If you can't tell, VTubing is something of an artistic passion. Like, I talked at some point before about the program we use, VNyan. Like, I make plugins for VNyan, and I like experiment with different things. I've shared like graphs and setups of how to do stuff, just to like help other people. I don't know. I find this stuff really cool. But yeah, that's it. I just wanted to take a second to have a little bit of a breather from a lot of the discussions and things that I put in this video, but I'll get out of your hair. Boop. Hey, you guys done with cleaning the toilets? Oh, not yet, sorry. Do you just need to pee? Mm-hmm. Well, then just go in then. The urinals are already done. Yeah, you know what? I think I'll just come back later. Yeah, that's a nice little affirming moment. Realistic trans girls? Nah. Clara Oswald, though. I loved her. She was fantastic as a companion. Like, genuinely. Maybe she was gender goals, huh? I always did really like her outfits. I can't do this. Why does voice training have to be so hard? Don't worry. I'll take this from here. Me after 100 hours of recorded singing. Let's get this over with. Later. Why is it still so hard? Voice training is just hard. It's difficult. It requires a lot of intentional practice and like kind of constant practice, you know? Especially if you have ADHD, that's not an easy thing. It's difficult. It's difficult a lot of times to like form the habits to be able to keep doing this and keep it up, because this isn't like a one and done practice it, you get the skill and that's it kind of thing. It's a always thing. Like, you should always be practicing your voice training. You know, give yourself a rest. Don't stress out your voice and don't hurt your voice. You don't want to push yourself too far, but you want to build up the endurance to basically just make the voice that you're training towards, the range that you're getting, you want to make that not be tiring, not be something hard. It requires a lot of endurance and practice like that. And it requires good practice too. And like singing, well, yes, you get a lot of skills out of singing, and definitely that can be transferable to learning how to do voice training or just like get different voices in general, especially with how to like protect your voice. The voice that you reach or you sit in when you're singing isn't necessarily going to be where you want your voice to be when you're speaking, you know? And if singing is the main way that you're practicing your voice and you're not practicing properly, that practice isn't actually that helpful, you know? Like, good practice makes perfect. Not just practice makes perfect, but good practice makes perfect. You could very easily learn the wrong skills or, form the bad habits that end up being a lot of work to try to get past afterwards. Hello? Hi, can I speak to Catherine? Oh, she's speaking. Oh my goodness, I didn't even recognize your voice. You sound exactly like a woman. I thought you were somebody else. Where the hell are you? You should be home by now, woman. That's still a win. That's still a good win. Injections are the only HRT you should take. Sublinguals are bad for you and ineffective. You're wasting your time and money if you don't use injections. Me very happy on sublinguals. If you're happy on sublinguals, keep taking it. If it's working for you, keep taking it. Everybody's bodies actually can respond to the different forms of HRT in different ways. But ultimately, all that matters is your body getting the hormone balance that it needs? If your blood tests come back in the right range, if you're seeing the changes you want, you don't need a change. I went through injections after going through a couple different forms of HRT, and I ended up sticking with injections because that has been what works best for me. That's not going to be the same for everybody else. And honestly, if I didn't have to take injections, I wouldn't. I didn't prefer this. I was okay with the patches. The patches were okay. But yeah. So, screw this kind of superiority. Well, ma'am, here you go. What? Oh, fuck. If you're at the point of dreaming about it and your response when you wake up to be disappointed that it was a dream, well, if you have the chance to get this, you should go for it.
Look, I'm a variety VTuber, a musician, and a DJ too. I'm not a doctor.
Oh, don't worry. I am a doctor. This won't hurt a bit.
Wait a second. You're an academic neurologist. It's already done.
Yeah, not so bad.
Wow. Although the weird thing about this is I don't actually give a shit about needles.
That's good.
Yeah, like to me, this reminds me way more about having a friend help you with your HRT shot, because honestly, it's hard to get an HRT shot in your ass.
Yeah.
When you're the one doing it, it's just a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of when I saw my friends who were roommates do that at an event one year in their hotel room while we were hanging out, because it was just that time of the week, and they were just like, hey, do you mind if we do the seahorse? And I was like, no, go ahead. And they would do it for each other because it was less painful, it was more consistent, and they found that doing the shots, and especially having it injected in their rear end, they didn't notice it after like a day. So to quote one of them, there wasn't this ongoing, lingering reminder. They didn't have the dysphoria linger because they were reminded of the pain from the shot.
I see.
So like, yeah, that's what this means to me. It's not I'm afraid of needles. Although I think that's what it was originally supposed to be with Samus. Like Samus, big, strong bounty hunter, scared of needles. But to me, this is more about, a friend helping a friend. This is all going in the video, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna I'm just sitting here going, yeah, keep talking. Yeah, this is good. Archaeologists will know you are trans. People assume bones can tell you gender, but archaeologists need to take into consideration multiple factors, such as the cultural circumstances, the type of burial, or even accessories. DNA testing can only tell your chromosomes sometimes. And that's not a good indicator of gender either. Google why they stopped DNA testing in the Olympics to know why. The archaeologists 200 years into the future will know your name. They might notice if you had breast implants or any surgery in your jaw. They might know you were trans. Or they might never know your gender at all. But they will for sure know you were loved. And those who live to hate others will rot in their forgotten tomes, nameless, for eternity. Love and be loved. And you might never be forgotten. I love the messaging of this one. And it brings up a really good point that I don't think transphobes ever consider or ever get through their head. A lot of trans people are open that they're trans. And in being buried with what they leave behind, whether like directly with them or just in history and books and how they made an impact in the world, it's likely going to be known that they're trans by their choice. I am a trans woman. I do not hide this. I don't want to hide this. I want to take pride in it. When I'm gone, I'm leaving behind, well, a lot of media and videos and all that kind of stuff, but just a lot of information about myself. And me being trans is gonna be there by my choice. Cute short haircut or waist-length hair? Oh, that's a hard choice. It's kind of funny, but the hair on this model actually is shorter than the hair I have IRL. And it's not because I don't want my hair long. I actually do like my hair long. I want that waist-length hair. I just also really like this length. I think it looks really cute. I'm not a puppy girl, owns ears, tails, and soon paws. And I am not a puppy girl. I'm a wolf girl. There's a difference. I have a PhD. The feminine urge to be tugged around a leash. Now, I wouldn't say this is a feminine urge. I mean, surely not all women want to be tugged around a leash. I, however, as a wolf girl, can relate to this one. Where does the tail go while driving? In the tail hole in the seat, tail between the seat and the back, tail on the side, or tail between the legs? Okay, this one's not a trans meme, obviously, but it is very relevant for me because, as a tail haver, where the hell does my tail go when I'm driving? When I'm sitting down, even. Also a problem for me as a VTuber, too. Like, if I'm trying to sit down on a chair or something, I'm trying to put my model down on a chair. If I'm in full body tracking and I go to sit down, right? Like, where does my tail go? How do I deal with it? And so I have some thoughts about these. Tail hole in the seat. I don't think so. Imagining pushing my tail through a small hole. Ugh. That would be painful, wouldn't it? Like, that sounds so uncomfortable. You ever try to fit something with a bunch of free-flowing hair or strands or whatever, and you fit it through a hole? They're all just gonna pull back and hyperextend the other way. Tail between the seat and the back. This one is plausible, I think. But if I'm standing straight like this, and well, actually, I guess my tail already does kind of go up that way. I was thinking your tailbone is at the base of your spine, and it would be going out, right? So to have it go up like that, you'd have to really compress your tail, fold it over. Tail on the side, this also seems bad. You're twisting the bone in a weird way that doesn't normally twist. Also, if you're in a car, there's not really much space over there. Tail between the legs, I kind of feel like this would be the most plausible. honestly. Tail follows the direction of your tailbone, and your spine ends pointing down like as it comes out of your spine. That'd be the most natural thing to happen, right? It would just kind of go between your legs. And you just have a big pillow in between your legs. I feel like that would be the most comfortable. That probably is it, right? I don't know. My abusive stepfather, you're a worthless sissy girl and you'll never be a real man. Me, a closeted trans woman. Haha, joke's on you. I am into that shit. God. Yeah, wild that the trans girl wants to be called a girl and that they'll never be a real man, right? Green M&M trans? Really proud of her. She's come a long way. And before you say that's not the same M&M, they're different shapes, I personally assure you, you can have nuts removed. Yeah. Trans means talking about their girl dick, and me, a straight trans woman with body dysphoria. I get this. I obviously do get this, but like, I also am guilty of talking about girl dicks or gocks in positive ways in different contexts. Kind of whenever I get a chance to bring it up, I like to. And the main reason I do that and talk about it isn't because I'm obsessed with girl dick or I just can't stop talking about gawk. It's kind of my own way to battle against dysphoria and I don't know, the bad feelings and shame that I felt my whole life. Like, I never heard trans girl dick talked about in a positive light before. And my whole life, that whole concept and idea just felt something to be ashamed of in myself, you know? And the first time that I'd heard somebody talk about, having a gawk in a positive way, it felt very liberating. Like, oh, that can be cool. That can be actually like awesome and not something to be ashamed of. And so I drew a lot to try to break that shame. That doesn't mean that if you have bottom dysphoria or want to get bottom surgery or have gotten bottom surgery that you're wrong for that. Like, I might get bottom surgery at some point. That is a decision for everybody to make about themselves. But people being positive about the bodies that they do have is also really good and important. And I don't want to believe that like we can't coexist in the same space. If a bunch of trans beings are talking about their girl dicks, they're not talking about you. If they are, that's not cool. That's a whole different thing. Like, if people are pushing stuff on you that you don't want to be a part of, or they're talking about your body in a way that doesn't make you feel comfortable, they should be respecting that. But yeah, I do recognize that sometimes the ways that different people share or express their experiences or their feelings can hurt other people, even if they're not about the other person. Something that everybody's brain just does is take what they hear about other people and like internalize it in some way, project it onto themselves. Doing that doesn't make you a bad person. Just everybody's brain just does that. That's just how our brains work. We hear information and our brain just relates it to ourselves almost automatically. And it can take a lot of work to like override that automatic thing that's happening and have it not impact you. If you hear other people talking about their body in a positive way and that's something that makes you feel bad thinking about it for yourself, they're not talking about you and they're not talking about your body. If they are, again, that's its own problem and they really shouldn't be doing that. And you have a right to tell them off because it's your body. But in the same way, it's their body too. We should, I hope, be able to be respectful of each other and respectful of each other's space while coexisting. But yeah, it's not an easy thing. First, I wasn't sure if I needed a new name, but over time, it no longer fit who I was. It's a disarming state of limbo, knowing your name no longer works for you, but not having a better one to take its place. So much goes into a name. A new name must capture all you are, but not feel too big for you. It can be a reworked version of your birth name or something completely different. In the end, I took the pieces of my birth name and reformed them into a new name, one that remembers where I came from and tells others who I am now. Some might not like the chosen name, but it fits for me. When I hear my new name, I sigh in relief. Yes, this will do. When I was trying to figure out my new name, I also went for something that took pieces of my old name, my previous name, and like reworked it in a different way. Originally, I'd wanted to just go by Kai, K-Y. The main thing I was thinking at the time was like, I liked being called Kai, K-Y. I liked that. That was my kind of nickname. It felt nice. And I wanted to find a name that would still be a valid nickname, you know, but would be more explicitly feminine. The name ended up being Kyra. And I still really like Kyra. I think it's, unique and I think it's really pretty. It means ladylike or noble lady in Greek. A few months later, the name Alice popped in my head and I realized like, oh wait, no, that actually really fits me way better. And at that point, I'd already decided that like Kyra is going to be my new name. So I was like, what do I do now? And yeah. Anyways, in a lot of places now, online or with friends in person, I go by Alice. That's why my model and my like channel name and stuff is called Alice. Like Alice is A good name. I like it. It fits me. It is a little funny that I, went from a name that was pretty unique and one that you don't usually hear trans girls call themselves or choose, to a name that is very common, extremely common, like Alice. I didn't even think about that when I chose Alice. I don't know, it just fit me. But honestly, we go by either. You can call us Alice, you can call us Kyra at any time, and both of those names work. They're both literally our name. Stonewall. We haven't forgotten. It's time for them to be reminded. Okay, this is something that needs to be talked about because I saw this and I saw other posts on the trans subreddit talking about Stonewall or like showing the protests and things. And I saw some people in comments who didn't know what this meant. If you aren't aware what's going on, I don't blame you because honestly, everything happened in the last 2 months is extremely overwhelming and scary. The point of what we're all being subjected to right now is to overwhelm us. That is the strategy. That's the point. But this is about our collective history. And one of the ways that we can fight back against our history being erased in front of us is to make sure that it is not forgotten. So the US is erasing transgender knowledge and history as much as they can. Right now, government websites and resources are being censored and scrubbed of any mention of trans and transgender. And last week, the webpage for Stonewall was censored to remove any reference to trans and queer. And if you don't know the history of Stonewall Inn and how important transgender people are to Stonewall's history, let me give you a brief summary. So Stonewall Inn is a historic gay bar in Manhattan in New York City. And the Stonewall riots were a week of rioting and protesting in June of 1969 by the LGBTQIA+ community that became a major turning point in the gay and queer rights movement. So in the 60s in America, queer folk were criminalized all throughout the US. They were pushed out of society and public spaces. They were refused service anywhere they went, and often they were harassed, abused, and humiliated by law enforcement. Gay bars existed where queer folk would come together and they were regularly raided by the police. The crimes we were committing were being gay or being trans. It was holding hands, kissing, dancing, and wearing and presenting in gender non-conforming ways. Many of the people targeted especially would be people suspected of cross-dressing, which you and I both know meant trans people. The police raid at Stonewall Inn wasn't the first police raid. It was a turning point when, after having endured this treatment for a long time up to this point, people pushed back. And two incredibly important people to this history and movement were two transgender women of color, a Black woman named Marsha P. Johnson and a Latina woman named Sylvia Rivera. Marsha in interviews have said that she arrived at Stonewall at 2 a.m. after the rioting had started, and so they didn't start the fire. But they were on the front lines of fighting for our rights. That week and for the rest of their lives, they were activists. They helped form that organization and form the movements that kept pushing it forward, fighting for our rights. The point being, transgender people were always there. Trans folk were being targeted and harassed alongside all gay and queer folk. We were among those who stood up against the injustice and were fighting back. We were leading the fight in charge. And a year later, around the anniversary of those raids and the riots, the protesting and marching across multiple cities became what we celebrate today as Pride Parade. Trans people are at the core of the gay rights movement and at the core of the Stonewall riots history. That is our history. And our erasure at this scale can't be allowed to just happen, which is just why I wanted to say all this. With our history being erased, we have to do what we can to learn it and preserve it, to know what happened and to know where we came from. If you were unfamiliar with the Stonewall riots history, definitely go look it up. Watch some videos, go read some articles about it. Go read articles about what's happening right now. There are many different levels that we can be all fighting back against all of this. Protesting is one of them, yes, but also just, again, making sure that we preserve all of this, preserve our history, and preserve each other. Like I said at the beginning of this video, trans people can't be erased. We won't be erased. History has tried to erase trans people for hundreds of years. History has tried to erase gay people, all queer people. And you know what? Gay and trans people and queer folk all still exist. Yes, we're being dragged through shit right now. Yes, it's probably going to get worse. And yes, we're all tired. Nobody wants to be fighting this fight. We all just want to live our lives. And hopefully we'll get to, even with all of this happening, just continue to keep building and living the best we can. And it would be nice if we didn't have to fight anymore and if we got to the finish line. But like I said, this isn't a new fight. This has been going on before the Stonewall riots. This has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. And while it's scary to see this happening, and it genuinely is an atrocity to see our history and knowledge is just erased like this, we also live at a time that it is a lot harder to do this, to actually erase our history. Yeah, this is the transmedical book burning stage. This is happening, but we're also able to still connect, to preserve, to not let us go down quietly. I don't know. I'm trying not to be a downer about this, but like, I want to make sure that not just even just to say that these are happening, but to take a second to share our history, because like this is something to be proud of. Like this is our history is something to be proud of, you know. And seeing it race like this is really upsetting, and kind of all I can think to do right now is just be loud about this, you know. Thank y'all for watching. If you liked this video, I'm glad. That's it. I'm just glad. I'm just happy. Thank you for anybody who's shared in the comment sections here that like, if these videos helped or impacted you in any way, like hearing that, I don't know, just like dumb videos you put on the internet have some positive effect on people, that like this is meaningful in some way, or it just helps people process and understand things, helps people be seen and heard, is really cool. It's really, really cool. I read as much comments as I can, but honestly, YouTube doesn't make it easy. I don't know if anybody has had to deal with like YouTube comment sections in the back end, but I swear it's almost like YouTube doesn't think or expect that creators would ever want to read their comment sections or ever want to moderate their comment sections. But yeah, I don't know. Come by our Twitch streams if you want to. We've been playing the Kingdom Hearts games. They're nice. It's cozy. I've been, you know, doing like comfort games. And you get to see the model and like all the different new stuff I constantly do with it every day. Did you know I have tongue physics? Sorry. Or come by our Discord, which, yeah, maybe I will put a link in the description. So you'll have to scroll down in the description. I'll put it like after all of the credits and stuff, you know? Also make sure you read the descriptions, because I put a lot of like work and information in there to just like, you know, fill it out with art credits and links and stuff and all that. But if you go to the bottom, there might be a link for you for the Discord. But yeah, thank you for your patience. Remember to take care of yourselves and take care of each other, and I'll see you around. Bye.